Welcome to Down to Business with V, a show dedicated to bringing you actionable information to help protect you, your families, your businesses, and the community. I'm your host, V, and today we're discussing 2 steps to protecting your assets and how to keep scammers at bay. We've called in a cybersecurity expert from a global leader in cybersecurity information, and we will give you tips on how to protect those accounts, as well as what to do if you're a victim. I'm V, I'm your host. Let's get down to business.
From Atlanta, Georgia, to becoming a United States Marine, to Washington, D.C., and every place in between, everybody calls me V. My goal is to bring you resources, education, and knowledge from sources you can trust that informs and protects to safeguard our families, our businesses, and the community. Now let's get down to business.
Welcome to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we are discussing 2 steps to protecting your assets, information security tips to keep scammers at bay. To bring awareness to this subject, we have in the studio with us today Tanya Dudley. Tanya is the Chief Information Security Officer for Cofense. We're very glad to have her. Tanya served as Strategic Advisor for Cofense, the leading provider of protection, detection, and response email security solutions with advanced AI-based automation to stop phishing attacks. Tanya is currently serving as the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer for Cofense, which has 27 patents, 400 worldwide employees, 5 global phishing defense centers operating 24/7. They're doing amazing things over at Cofense. Tanya is also currently serving as an executive committee member for the National Cybersecurity Alliance, working closely with the Department of Homeland Security, CISA, the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, promoting information security best practices and education to organizations around the world. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So Tanya, can you tell us a little bit about the National Cybersecurity Alliance and what you do there as an organization?
Yeah, so National Cybersecurity Alliance is a partnership to bridge private and public sector together, right? So that we can help educate not only organizations but the consumer about cybersecurity fraud and behaviors and what it is that they can do to protect themselves. A little over 10 years ago, we started this thing called National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right? So all of October is really highlighted on specific behaviors that we know that need to be addressed, right? And so each year we've done weekly themes, but this year we decided we're just gonna put the themes out there, and organizations or whoever wants to highlight these particular topics can do it as they need to, right? Because not every organization might, have the same threats that they're dealing with. So we kind of put it out there. This year we have passwords, MFA, software updates, and then of course phishing. So we cover all of those, and we have individuals or organizations sign up to be champions to help promote Cybersecurity Awareness Month right within their organizations. But then also if they have a consumer reach, then also making sure that their consumers understand the importance of protecting themselves.
Absolutely, and I will say that I am a champion
Yes.
For Cybersecurity Awareness Month with the National Cybersecurity Alliance, as well as my company, the Vicar Group. We are excited to expand that message and bring that to our audience, which is why the show even exists.
Right.
So
good.
yes, thank you for what you do there. So Tanya, share with us some real world examples of how malicious actors are compromising accounts.
So one of the things that we see at Cofense is the number one phishing threat that we see is credentials, right? So if a threat actor can gain access to credentials, then they can get into that potential targeted organization that they're trying to go after as a legitimate user, right? They can be in that network in their services without being noticed, being alerted on. But we also see that they might go after credentials from a consumer point of view, right? So if I can get access to your bank account or your social media, then I could, gain access to your funds or to your social media account to then further my threat and go after other victims. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that we see threat actors leveraging those credentials.
Absolutely. I saw a post, and I know that for National Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year, the National Cybersecurity Alliance is focusing on multi-factor authentication, MFA.
Yes.
I saw a post on social media where someone was responding to someone who is very high ranking in our industry, talking about MFA, and they referred to it as MFA. And there was almost this, kind of shaking their head because people weren't using MFA. But the response to that was, the audience you're talking to doesn't know what MFA is. So reach them at their level. So Tanya, for those that don't know what MFA, multi-factor authentication, is, please explain that to our audience.
Basically what multi-factor authentication is, MFA, it makes it easy to say, but basically what it is adding a second layer of authentication. So, we've always had username and password, and that has been okay, but now that we know that threat actors are buying stolen credentials online, right? A data breach happens, the credentials get leaked online, they're able to access those. And so the best way that you can protect yourself is adding that additional factor so that it's more than just your username and password, because as we can also talk about is password reuse, right? So it's many people, because of everything needs a logon ID these days, right? You have a username and password for so many different sites. That threat actors will buy these, they'll spray them across different sites, right, to see where they can get access to. So because of this password reuse, it's easy for threat actors to leverage those username and passwords. So adding that additional factor then can stop them. I myself have it turned on as many places as that is capable of it. Last year, sitting in church, I got this little alert that says, we have a notice that you are trying to log into your Facebook. I haven't logged into my Facebook in over 5 years. Wow. So immediately I knew I'm not worried about it because I have that two-factor, and then just replied back of that wasn't me, and they were able to then, then they send it off to fraud team or whatever they do with it. But then I knew that I didn't have to worry about my Facebook account being compromised or taken over or stolen, right, because I had that additional factor. So I always tell people, at least, enable it wherever you can, especially your bank accounts, right, and especially your social media accounts that all allow for that now. And many websites and institutions are standing up that capability so that you can enable that.
Right. And for clarity for our audience, multi-factor authentication is where any of your social media accounts, your banking accounts, they are asking for another way to identify that it's you.
Right.
So whether it's a telephone number or an email address or some other way that they can authenticate using, a different account to authenticate that it's you.
Yes.
To protect those accounts as they're logging on. That's going to protect them.
Yes, and I also recommend that try to avoid using an SMS text message, right? Because we are seeing more and more threat actors going after a way that they can compromise or get access to your cell phone number. So trying to avoid that as much as you can, right? Use an out of band, which is another type of authentication mechanism that will allow you to set that up. And most applications and banks have configured some other type of two-factor certificate that you can do that with instead of using your SMS.
Wonderful. And Tanya, tell us some real case scenarios where multi-factor authentication was not in place. What were the dangers? What happened in those instances?
So when you don't have that enabled, and we see that over and over again today, right? It's very complicated for an organization to be able to say we're doing MFA across all of our applications, and when that doesn't happen, threat actors are able to, and that's why they send the phishing emails saying, hey, log into this website so I can get your credentials, right? They mimic the Microsoft or some other cloud service that's a legitimate service because it will get into your, land in your inbox, and it's something you recognize, it becomes familiar with it. But then once they are able to gain those credentials, then they can then log in. And we see this over and over again. Many of the high-profile breaches, many times it all starts with a phishing email, right? And it starts with that getting access to those credentials.
Right. And the phishing emails, for those in our audience that aren't aware, are emails that target a potential victim with fraudulent links that will take them to malicious sites or compromise the receiver in some way.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be a malicious site, right? Sometimes they've compromised another website, right? A legitimate looking business website that maybe isn't set up so securely that they can, set up an additional page on there so it looks like it might be, or they might spoof a legitimate company's website to be able to make it look as if it's legitimate for you to log into, and then they've stolen your credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. In financial sector operations, we see that quite a lot, where they're sent to, the victims are sent to a spoofed website, asked to provide their login information, or they're sent an SMS text message saying, hey, we need you to log in for this reason or that reason, and they're sent to either a spoof site or a malicious site where they're entering information that are their login, either login information or providing their identifying information.
That's right.
So we saw a case just this past week where the gentleman provided his name, social security number, date of birth, all of the vital statistics. That was the word I was looking for. All of the vital statistics into this spoofed website, and it was so unfortunate.
Oh, unfortunate.
So yeah, very, very unfortunate. So Tanya, when we come back, we want to talk more about this subject, what the National Cybersecurity Alliance is doing, as well as CoFence, your part in it, and how we can protect consumers. So for those of you that are watching, this is going to be a great upcoming segment. Stay with us.
Every organization is responsible for ensuring cybersecurity. The ability to protect its information systems from impairment or even theft is essential to success. Implementing effective security measures will not only offer liability protection, it will also increase efficiency and productivity. With our cybersecurity workshop, your participants will understand the different types of malware and security breaches. Develop effective prevention methods which will increase overall security. They'll also understand the basic concepts associated with cybersecurity and what a company needs to stay secure.
Find out more about training for you and your organization at vicargroup.com.
Welcome back to Down to Business with V. I'm your host, V, and today we are discussing 2 steps to protecting your assets, information security tips to keep scammers at bay. And today we have in the studio with us Tanya Dudley. She is the Chief Information Security Officer for CoFence and on the Executive Committee for the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Welcome back, Tanya.
Thanks for having me, V.
Thank you so much for being here. Tanya, we talked about in the first segment multi-factor authentication, MFA, what it is and what it means to our viewers. Can you recap what that is?
Yeah, so multi-factor authentication is setting up that secondary way to authenticate to logging into your account. So instead of just your username and password, it's asking for an additional prompt. It might prompt you if you're logging in to either put in a code that it's presenting you at that one moment that is very short-lived, or a pop-up just authenticating that is you that is actually logging in.
Wonderful. And just for the sake of conversation, what can our audience expect if MFA is enabled on their device?
So if you're using a third-party out-of-band software that either the banking institution or however, if it's your Google Gmail suite or Google Suite, it might use Google Authenticator. Your Microsoft Outlook may use its Authenticator app, or some have like a countdown. It'll give you a code, so that code is only good for a few seconds. So it'll pop that up on your mobile device, whatever you have configured for that, where that 2-factor is going to live at, to give you that code to be able to push that button to authenticate.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Tanya, tell us some red flags that we might see in a scenario where a malicious actor is attempting to compromise someone. Tell us about that and how multi-factor authentication can help in those situations.
Yeah, so you might have, your information may have been stolen in a breach, and so they may be making attempts to log into your account. And you may get some notifications that may be asking for you to verify some information. Those are sometimes some red flags. Just trying to get access to your account, right? So asking you questions that might be in your security profile that they might try and either log in as you to be able to get around some of those controls, to be able to then get to your account, get to your information, to further potentially drain your bank account, right? Or use your social media account for using it as a victim, right? Because they like to use these accounts, right, to be able to have legitimate users interacting with either your contacts or just being able to friend other people to make it look legitimate. Yeah, I don't know what other red flags, but just like looking for things that seem abnormal that might be happening with your accounts.
And I know in the first segment you said that you were in church one day.
Yes.
Got a text message saying, wanting to verify your login for a Facebook account that you hadn't used in 5 years.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that someone might see or receive.
Right. If you're not logging into your accounts, and then getting that alert, like that's a red flag that something's happening with your account, and then report those, right? Making sure that the website or the social media site or your bank that they have, that you're letting them know that this happened, right? Because then they can look to detect. Maybe some other people are having the same issue, and so they can look to see, is there something going on with their website that's being under attack, that somebody's targeting, not you as an individual, but more broadly across the platform.
Right. I know in financial sector operations, the clients or members, depending on the type of institution it is, notify consistently that either they're getting emails or text messages or some sort of phishing attempt, phishing or vishing.
Yeah.
And vishing is when it's being used with the SMS text messages, but they're being routed to somewhere else. So it's of high importance that we report it,
Right.
because it alerts the organization that these things are happening and they can take action.
Right, right. And then just look, going directly to the website itself, right? Going to that institution or your mobile app to verify is something wrong here, right? And then if, because you shouldn't be receiving those messages, right? And just going directly to where that you do that, interaction with, so that it's not directly with however the threat actor may try to engage you with, that's off platform.
Right. And that multi-factor authentication is great because it lets you know something is happening somewhere,
Right.
even if it's you. Like I logged into my Amazon account on one device. It said, "We are not sure. This is you."
Yep.
And they sent me a link on another device.
Yep.
Or the multi-factor authentication notification on another device. So it really is helpful to secure those accounts, whether they're our shopping accounts,
Yes.
social media accounts,
And
banking
oftentimes,
accounts.
like that just reminded me of the Amazon account, right? My son will buy some things on Amazon and he'll text me immediately, that was me, right? So that I can give him the code, even though the text message from Amazon says, do not share this with anyone, right?
Yes.
So that he can then log into the Amazon account, right? Because I want to make sure I keep that thing, secure, because it has, especially places where you're storing your credit card information, which you should try to avoid it at all cost, right? But where you might have other financial information on there that they can gain access to. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I know you talked about the credit card storage or those account number storages. Let's talk about password managers and how those can be used. I know that's a huge focus for Cybersecurity Awareness Month this year.
Yes.
For the National Cybersecurity Alliance. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Right. So in combination with having MFA enabled on all of your accounts where you can, right? Because not every application or website might not have that feature. But it's really, really critical that you use a unique username and password on every login that you have. And that can seem daunting now that everything wants you to log in, right? And so I myself have over 200 accounts in my password manager. So the best way to manage all of that is using a password manager. So a password manager will allow you to have that username and password be unique as it can. Oftentimes many websites, because it's easy for them to just say, use your email address. So if your email address has that same password across multiple sites, then when that data breach happens, that's where threat actors can then leverage that across there. But if you have a unique username and password, the likelihood of them reusing that, we call that account reuse or account takeover, is diminished because it's not the same password. So if you hear of an organization that says they had a data breach, the first thing you want to do is go in and change your password, so that way you're protected. But now imagine if you had that same password across multiple sites and that username and password has been compromised. Now you have to remember all the places where you use that, right? So, and I know it can be daunting, and that's why we recommend using a password manager. But I always tell people to start with your bank accounts and your social media, right? Those are your critical accounts where threat actors really kind of go after and try and harvest those credentials that can get them financial gain. Start there. But then now I've just gotten in the habit, every time I'm creating a new account for some website, I open up my password manager, I'm putting in my username and my password, making it unique. And many of them will generate one for you. It's not readable. And they also have browser extensions, so that way you can have it readily available so that you're not having to key that in every time, right? And even my mobile device, right? It will let me choose, do I want to use my keychain save password, or do I want to open up my password vault and pull the password from my vault? So that way it's user-friendly, right? Making it easier for us to do the right things is what really helps people stay secure.
Tanya, in a conversation with someone about password security managers, they were a little skeptical.
Yes.
And their concern was, now all of my passwords are in one place. I'm a little concerned about the security of the password security manager.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
Well, so I have a software engineer son who has the same discussion with me over and over again. But I always recommend people go to Consumer Reports or PC Magazine, where they have done assessments across all of the different managers to really, drill into them, do some reviews on, how safe they are. So I always, pick one that is best for you and your family, because many of them have a family plan, right? So that way you can, oftentimes, like I just mentioned, my son using my Amazon account, right? So that you can have a way for them to also keep those passwords secure. But use those two resources is what I always recommend. They always do a really good job of updating that annually to do those assessments of those different password managers. I would rather take the time and have that, and they all have the capability to do an export for them to keep it offline securely, right? Or do a backup of that, so that way if you change devices, that you can still import those passwords into your device.
Yeah, it's a lot better than using the same password
right.
over and over
Right.
and over again.
Right.
And the dangers that come along with that.
That's right.
So Tanya, for those people that may not have been using a password manager, and they have been a victim of a data breach or some sort of account compromise or account takeover, what would you say to them?
That's where I really recommend start simple and start with your bank account, your social media, and your email accounts, right? Start there, and then just really, carve out some time where you can go through and set up your passwords. And the first thing you do when that happens is reset your password for that particular account, right? Because it has been compromised. And oftentimes when you get that notification, it's going to tell you to reset your password. That's the best way you're going to save yourself from any further damage.
And in a case of an account compromise, account takeover, we would recommend that they go to the financial institution in some cases if it's financial.
Yeah.
Social media organization.
Yeah, and also report those, right? If
Yes.
if you think that you've given away your credentials to someone, change it, and then yes, notify them. It's also one of the reasons why I always recommend that people freeze their credit, so that any of those big data breaches, if for some reason your account does get taken over, there's little they can do with it if you can freeze your credit as well.
All right. All great advice. Tanya, I want to thank you and the National Cybersecurity Alliance for what you're doing every day to keep our businesses and consumers safe. We certainly do appreciate it. And of course, the work that you're doing at Cofense
Right.
as CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. That's a big job. That is a hefty role. I don't think people realize what you do every day. So thank you for what you're doing there.
Thank
we
you.
certainly do appreciate it. And if you all need more information on multi-factor authentication and password managers, you can visit the National Cybersecurity website, National Cybersecurity Alliance website, staysafeonline.org. I'd like to thank our guest today, Tanya Dudley, Chief Information Security Officer for Cofense. Thank you for sharing your insight and expertise with our audience today. We certainly do appreciate you. If you or someone you know has been a victim of a data breach, an account compromise, or any other type of scam, be sure to contact your local police department or visit the FBI at ic3.gov. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Vicar Group, LLC, business consultants for Generation U. You can visit Vicar Group at vicargroup.com. If you'd like to be a sponsor of the show or be a guest on the show, or if you have show ideas, please contact us at info@dtbwithv.com. I'd like to thank our crew today, Eric, Hannah, Peter, Stephen, and of course Doug and Suzanne for making this show possible. We could not do it without you. I'm your host, V. This is Down to Business with V. We'll see you next time.